Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's really great to have you. I'm so excited to share our work. Just love this work. My name is Chuck Fisher. I'm the Executive Director of Dovetail Learning and psychologist by trade. My background is in transpersonal psychology, which is the study of human well-being from cross-cultural perspectives. All cultures. And we're going to talk today about courageously connecting, skills for authentic communication. I'll just give you a little bit about the approach itself. Where Resilient starts as an open education resource, something that is licensed through a Creative Commons attribution, which is an international license that lets you download and use our work for free, adapt it, share it with your community. Please, we ask that you give attribution to Dovetail for the work that you use, collaborate, share back, and if you publish anything related to our work or with our work, the license simply requires you to share it alike, which means also to share what you do for free and available for everyone. So the approach itself, for those of you who don't know it, I'll just do a very brief overview before we get into the meat of the subject, is skills for well-being. And we place these into two categories, patterns and skills. Cultural patterns, the things that we inherited intergenerationally. Protective patterns, which we also call reactive resilience, which is our reactive patterns. And then three layers of skills or types of skills, skills for different contexts. The first context is ourself. How do we center ourselves for our own personal resilience? Then what are the skills for connecting deeply and authentically with others? We call that relational resilience, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And then we also distinguish a whole set of skills for collaborating and working as allies together with others in groups, teams, families, any way you want to play. So what we say about these is that the cultural patterns are how we view the world. Our reactive patterns are, of course, how we react to the world. And then the skills are how we create our world. And what we're going to be talking about today is how do we create our world using these types of resilience, but how do we create authentic connection? How do we courageously connect? And if you look at all of the different types of resilience that we have identified and defined, what we're going to be doing today is looking at two of them. First, a brief look at reactive resilience because it's so important to understand how we get in our own way of authentically communicating. And then secondly, looking at relational resilience and the skills for being authentic and courageously connecting. So that's the fun we're going to have today. Again, so glad you're all here with us. And let's jump in. Courageously connecting. Courageously connecting. What does that even mean? Courageously connecting. The idea of using our courage. Courage comes from the root word core or kur, which means heart. So courageously connecting is connecting with our heart, following our heart, being deeply connected to what's important and why it's important, and then acting upon our heart's desire. So, as I said, it's really important to see what gets in the way, because if we don't understand that, then we're missing a huge part of our human condition. So let's look at that. What gets in the way? Well, of course, losing our cool gets in the way, right? This is a classic stress curve. You can see, you're going along in your day and something happens and we have a reaction. We call that protective pattern. So protective pattern clicks in. And, our stress can go medium high, very high, or through the roof. And our reaction, rather. And then, we calm down, we get depleted because of it, because there's so much adrenaline involved in that. And then we finally get back to normal. So what we like to say is how we are matters. How we are. How we are matters. Our inner music impacts everything, every relationship, our experience of our own day, our attitude. And we use a little um, image here, which we call practice model coach. And we believe that we have to practice our skills, practice noticing when we get off center, so that we can model that inside of a relationship and then be able to coach it from an authentic place inside. So let's start with noticing how we are. We like to walk our talk here, and what I'd like to do is bell us in. I'm going to ring a bell and ask us each to just put our feet on the floor and take less than a minute, maybe 30 seconds, and just touch into what's your state of being right now in this moment. And we'll begin with the bell. Invite you to rest or close your eyes if you're comfortable. And notice your breath. Let your breath just take you right into your body. And be aware of the state of being of your body-mind. Just rest in that pause for a moment and notice what you notice. Notice what you notice. I find it always such a gift to do that pause. I mean, I think we did it for less than 30 seconds. But it taps me into how am I right now? And what I'd like to invite you to do is to go to the chat in the bottom of your window and open it up and just chat in right now just a word or a phrase that is indicative of your state of being. It could be anything from totally overwhelmed or stressed to feeling curious and excited or hopeful. Um, any kind of word that comes in. Oh, thank you so much for putting your words in. Fear, scared, burdened, numb, hopeful. It is such a thing being a human, isn't it? It's just, it's awe-inspiring. You know, what we do, how we experience having too much sugar in our system, feeling calm, having too much coffee, multitasking, being a part of this experience of being human. It's truly a miracle what happens to us because we are affected and we then affect everything around us by our state of being. So what I'd like to do is move forward through the protective patterns. I'm going to do this very quickly. We do 6-week circles, and one of the circles is focused on our protective patterns and centering skills. We're not going to be doing that today because we'll be focusing on connecting. But these are critical to authentic communication, and these are the things that keep us from authentic communication. So just a quick run through our protective patterns. Distrusting. If I'm feeling distrusting or doubt about myself, I was in a meeting this morning and I was feeling a little unsure of myself, keeps me from being fully there until I can step over that hurdle and be myself and be vulnerable, be authentic. But the distrust of myself, or if there's someone in the room who I distrust, it keeps me a little distant. Hypervigilance is, am I always watching for things? I grew up in an alcoholic family. I learned how to be hypervigilant. So like always on guard for what needs to happen next and what's happening now and who's in the room and how's it impacting. That keeps me out there in the room. It keeps me outside of myself. So I have to draw myself using a centering skill back home, back here, in order to not be hypervigilant. The next two are hyper caretaking and avoiding, and each of these pairs go together in a certain way. How do I over prioritize others at my expense. This is such a normal part of our life. We do things for others, or we're on the watch out for what they're needing, and lose ourselves in the process. And avoiding can be an avoiding behavior itself, hypercaretaking. Avoiding myself, avoiding my emotions and my feelings. Could be withdrawing or retreating. And of course, every one of these protective patterns are critical and necessary, and they help us be safe. So my hyper vigilance keeps me safe by knowing what's happening. My hyper caretaking keeps me safe by helping me contribute. My avoiding keeps me safe by staying away from something that I'm concerned about, or I'm worried about, or could hurt me. And then the last two are defending and attacking. And we all have all of these, of course. But distinguishing and naming them is very important to authentic communication. And I'm a defender as well as an avoider. So do I act like someone's always judging me? In my primary relationship with my wife, my lifelong partner, I'm a defender. She happens to be an attacker, so we fit well together. But we all play these roles on our team at Dovetail. We all know who we are. We've got a bunch of attackers and in the room, and a few defenders. And when we know that that's what's happening in the room, then we can be more authentic. We can even claim our protective patterns. Wow, I'm feeling really defensive, which is an authentic communication. Or I'm feeling like I'm really upset by this, and I want to change it, which can be an attacking, offensive move. So if you just think for a moment, what is your style, and consider, are you more like a turtle, getting inside the hiding, or more on the offensive? And again, what I like to do is, because we learn from each other, we normalize our own experiences with each other. If you would chat this in to the chat, which of these feels familiar? Which of them feels like, okay, I got that one. Uh, thank you for popping those in. Hyper caretaking, avoiding, another attacking, hyper caretaking, and defending. Oh, isn't there something about naming our condition that's useful? It normalizes it. When I realize that I'm a hyper caretaker, I can relax a little bit and go, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to keep myself safe by, yeah, exactly. Tracy types in, it's freeing to realize what our protective patterns are. And as I said, as we move into this conversation about courageously connecting, our protective patterns are critical to being free to then move forward in authentic ways. So let's move towards that. The first step is going to be to look at our resilient mindsets. There's three that we identify as critically important. The first is curiosity. How am I being? We shine the light of curiosity first on ourselves, so we can see, oh, I'm being this way. I'm nervous about this relationship. I'm excited about this relationship. What's the difficult conversation that I want to courageously connect on? What are my choices with that? Do I continue to choose to not have that conversation? Do I realize it's so important that I need to have it, and then find the ways to have it that are effective? And then using courage, which is really a question of what kind of a person do I want to be? And do I really want to follow my heart? I just love that essence of the word courage, because if I'm following my heart, it gives me strength to take a step or a stand toward that conversation that's important. So let's just define resilience. We love this adaptation from Ann Maston. It's an ordinary superpower. Resilience is part of every one of us. We're all resilient all the time. And what we do at Dovetail is we distinguish, define, and help us all understand the experience of the different aspects of resilience so that we can be attuned to it and know when we're off and then know how to bring ourselves on. So we'll start by being curious about our stress reaction. What the heck's going on or what happened. We use our curiosity to notice our protective patterns and then to wonder and assess and then start choosing the skills that will help us with that courageous conversation. So as soon as we use our curiosity and we start thinking about our choices, which skill is going to help me most here, that moves us in the direction of being able to be more effective in our relations. And using courage is about skillfully managing our stress in the face of a courageous conversation. And what does it really take to get from here to there? To not be reactive to someone that we might want to have this conversation with. And what we say is it takes skills. It takes practicing the skills, understanding the levers of effectiveness that we can pull. And today we're now going to go and spend the rest of our time looking at the connecting skills. Centering ourselves is critical, but this particular webinar is about connecting, authentic connecting. And we call it relational resilience because when we use the connecting skills, it helps us to be present to ourselves and another person in a way that matters. And the connecting skills include these 5 skills. We always start with noticing. We're actually going to do some noticing of ourselves and others, because noticing ourselves fits into the centering skills, but it's critical in being able to notice others. Heartfelt listening. What is the difference between listening with our heart and not listening with our heart? Empathizing, empathy and compassion. How do those play into having an authentic conversation? How does kindness impact it? And then how does our speaking our being into the space of the conversation? So we're going to do a spotlight on these 5. And again, such a pleasure to share this with you. I didn't mention, if you don't know, Dovetail is training this work in healthcare clinics and education and businesses and with families. And when you go onto our website, you can see that there are downloads for each of those areas that are free, shareable, and we just like to spread the love of what it takes to be a kind, connected human being. So, starting with noticing others. Spotlight. We can bring to bear curiosity when we start thinking about another person. We can bring to bear our choices, what it means to keep away. That's a choice, actually. Stay away from someone or keep our guard up. And it's also a choice to move into more vulnerability and authenticity, which takes courage. So let's look at this idea of noticing others. We have these taglines for each of the skills. In this case, we say, noticing you gives me a clue. Noticing you gives me a clue. So if I really see you, I really have a big clue as to what it will take to be authentic, how I want to be authentic, and what I want to be authentic about. It may be about you that I want to be authentic. It may be about me and how I'm experiencing myself in our relationship. So let's think about what are the dimensions of noticing others. And it starts with being real. So what am I noticing about the other person? What am I sensing, feeling about what's happening for them? Their stress, their state of being, if you will. What am I noticing about that? And how does that figure into how I'm going to be with someone in an authentic communication? And then what am I sensing and feeling in me? When I was in training to be a psychotherapist, one of the key skills is called dual attention. I need to have as much attention on my interior self as I have on you, so that in the relating of the two of us, to be authentic, I'm authentically seeing who you are and how you're being, but I'm also authentically relating to how am I experiencing this relationship. Those both go together and they're both critical. I forgot to click the slide there. So I just want to share one dimension of science behind this skill, and it's about how the body-mind actually works in relationship to someone else. And it's incredible. We are wired. We have a system. It's a radar system, really. And I'm a trainer for HeartMath Institute. What they say is our neurology is picking up the information of someone else's neurology all the time. And I love this view of the vagus nerve because it infuses our whole self, really. What we pick up in the gut. Ever had a gut reaction about something that's going on? We call it intuition sometimes. That's often actually where we begin perception is in the gut. So we're in this relationship with another person, but there's so much more going on. The physiology, the neurology, the heart wave communication and information. HeartMath Institute says that the heartbeats that we're experiencing are like a Wi-Fi system. They spread our nervous system into the room and pick up the same thing equally. So when we're talking about noticing others and noticing ourselves, there's a huge amount going on beyond just what they're wearing or what their tone of voice is. There's the entire neurology of both of us. So what do we notice, when we first encounter others? Usually it's a felt sense, a feeling. What about their way of being is influencing us? And then what gets in the way of our noticing, which we already talked about in terms of protected patterns. So being present, what we like to call presencing, turning it into a verb, which comes actually from MIT and the Presencing Institute, the work that they do. I encourage you to go to their website, presencinginstitute.com, I believe. And when we presence ourselves in someone else, we're opening the door to being able to have authentic communication. So let's take a spotlight on heartfelt listening. Again, using our curiosity. What does the heart have to do with it? What are my choices around heart and courage? And we say, listening or feeling a part, listen with my heart. Feeling apart from someone. You may have someone in mind that you're thinking about that you came to this webinar for. A boss, a colleague, a friend, a family member. Feeling apart. What does my heart have to tell me? And I listen with my heart. It's about listening non-judgmentally, really taking in what someone else is there for, and giving space to that person. I love this quote on the right here by Thomas Hubel. If you don't know his work, look him up. He's an amazing, gifted teacher. He says, the deepest listening is presence, space, an open heart, and the deep receiving of someone. So if we want to have authentic communication, what better than to receive the other person just as they are and just as they are not, so that we can hold them in our heart and extend our heartfulness to them to be able to have the kind of relationship that we want to have. And we often ask the question, how do you know when you are listening with your heart versus not? And just take that in for a moment. How do you know? How do you know when you're really listening with your heart or when you're not? When I listen with my heart, I have to be in my body, in the somatic awareness of my physiological being. And when I'm not, I have to be in my mental domain. I have to be thinking about what I'm going to say, thinking about who they are, being judgmental. It's all in the mental domain. And the mind and the body are not anywhere near disconnected. They're completely connected. So what happens in my mind impacts my body and vice versa. So when we do listen with our heart, it opens us to the next skill of empathizing. Empathizing, again, I'm curious, how does feeling about what someone else is feeling give me more choice? How does it come in to courageous conversation? And we say, hearts are the prize when we empathize. Hearts are the prize when we empathize. So let's be curious about that. What must it feel like to be in another person's situation? And what must they be feeling? That's what empathy is about. Having empathy is connecting to what someone else must be feeling. Now, empathy can then lead to compassion, because if I think really about what someone must be going through, this person maybe you have in mind that you want to have an authentic conversation with, if you really feel what it must be like to be them, it opens up a world of possibility of choosing to love them just exactly as they are, even though they may be the most difficult person in your life. But it's not their behavior that we're talking about here. It's their person, their soul, if you will, their self, if you don't mind my using that word. But when we really come present to present with another human being as them, then we can love them for who they are and love ourselves at the same time. Love this quote from Maya Angelou. She says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So it's good to explore. And I invite you to explore. How does empathizing help with authentic communication? And how do my protective patterns influence my ability to empathize? Because my protective patterns will shut me down from who you are and how you are. But my empathy, my felt sense, which comes from listening with the heart, will let me see you clearly and care about you in the way that my heart wants to. Which then leads to the next skill, which is choosing kindness. Let's be curious about kindness. How does kindness impact everything? What are our choices about kindness? And the courage to use it. So we say, the choice is mine to be kind. The choice is mine to be kind. I have a choice to be kind. I can walk into a room and be, have an attitude. I can wake up in the morning on the wrong side of bed and have a tone of voice that my family members do not appreciate. And as soon as I catch myself in that, really it's a protective pattern, it's a habit, it's an inherited, enculturated way of being. As soon as I catch myself, I can shift my attitude my tone of voice, my words, and everything changes. Everything changes when we use kindness. The choice is mine to be kind. So what is there to be curious about? How can I act kindly in this situation with this person who I want to have an authentic conversation with? How can I act kindly in this way? I have a picture of His Holiness the Dalai Lama here because he says his religion is kindness. That's it. That's the bottom line. If you look at Buddhism, it's kindness. How can I act kindly in this situation? And how can my kindness impact the relationship? And how does it feel to be kind? How does it feel when we're kind? When I make that shift inside myself towards kindness with someone, and it can be someone who's difficult. It just changes everything. So when we ask ourselves this question around authentic communication, am I being passive? Am I stepping away from authenticity? Am I being aggressive? Am I really pushing too hard on it? Or am I in the middle where kindness lives with a beautiful power and healthy boundaries that help me say, no, that's not okay, um, and please don't speak to me that way. Let's come back to this conversation another time if we can't do it with kindness, which is all authentic speaking. So that's the last spotlight in this webinar, and I'm just going to go a few more minutes to complete with speaking authentically. Being curious about how that is, what it means, what are my choices, and how does courage have to do with it. We say when I authentically talk, hearts unlock. When I authentically talk. Now, there's all kinds of ways we talk where hearts do not unlock. We all know what that feels like, what it sounds like, what it looks like. But what does it mean to speak authentically? And here we are inside of, thank you, Trish. So you have to leave. Anyone has to leave. I'll be sending out the recording of this afterwards, but we'll just take a few more minutes around speaking authentically and being curious about how can I speak my truth in this moment, being open, being vulnerable. Brene Brown has the most incredible work on the power of emotions. She's got video out, tapes on something called Atlas of the Heart, which is all of the emotions. And her work has defined the power of vulnerability. We think that we shouldn't be vulnerable. We have this cultural pattern. We have to be strong and stiff and not let anyone know that we're being impacted. But it turns out that being honest about how we're being impacted is what opens up our relationships. It's what every positive, strong relationship that we have has required vulnerability. So we want to speak from that place. But let's look at what it's not, too, because it's important to see the counterexamples. What it's not is needing to be right, getting defensive, being passive-aggressive, being abusive and saying, my authenticity, my authentic belief is you're such and such. That is not a clear I message. That's an attacking message. That's not what we mean by authenticity. So what we mean is about speaking our truth with assertiveness, being apologetic or forgiving, asking for clarification, and speaking our being. What I mean here for good or ill is if we speak our being in those top ways that we were just looking at, it causes illness in our relationship. But if we can be clear about what I'm experiencing, if I can say, I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling like I want to keep distance in our relationship, and that's not how I want our relationship to be. See what I'm doing there? I'm being vulnerable. I'm speaking authentically about what my experience is, and that allows us to move forward with someone else, using the resilient mindset of courage, facing, accepting, taking a stand for what's true for me, which may include boundaries. So we are learning together here. We're learning from our stories, and I would like to give you one more opportunity to just write in something that you would like to say in the chat. What is moving or inspiring you in this moment from what we've covered so far? And then I have about 2 more slides to share. So what is moving or inspiring you now? With these ideas, you're so welcome. Our website, for those of you who don't know it, is full of resources you can download. And authenticity is the real thing. It's the real deal. It's what deepens a relationship. The required. Oh, good. Reading Atlas of the Heart. Yeah. If you haven't seen Brene Brown's video series on that, I think it's on Netflix. It's just superb. Maybe it's not on Netflix. I had to purchase some account to get it, but she has 5 sessions where she goes through some of the deep key stuff. So thank you for your posts, and let's just come back to the bigger picture, the different types of resilience that we have. What we do at Dovetail is we train on all of these. We do individual trainings, we do 90-minute introductions, half-day trainings, full-day trainings. We do coach certification trainings, and certify people in our work. As I said, if you haven't seen it, there's a ton of material on our website. It's all open education resourced. Practical skills for resilience for educators, healthcare workers, families. There's a whole video section. Be sure to look at the videos. There's interviews with people about how they're using the skills. And I already mentioned the downloads. So with that, we're at the end of our webinar. And thank you all so much for being here. Such a pleasure to share our work. Reach out to us, info@dovetaillearning.org, or you can reach me, chuck@dovetaillearning.org. So have a great day, everyone.